Namaste and welcome to the very first panel of The Uncrossing. So, after a wonderful inaugural address by Prema Shaktima, we now have Megan G with us, an ex Christian from Texas, to share her experience and her journey. So, thank you so much, Megan G, for joining us today. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. It's an honor to stand for Dharma.
Thank you so much, Megan G. So, getting straight into the discussion, Megan G, my first question to you would be: so you left your religion a year back. So, we would just like to understand that what made you denounce Christianity?
Um, well, there are a few things that kind of stuck out the most. The biggest thing is all my life, I never really believed that somebody would be sent to hell for not having a certain set of beliefs. Growing up, I did have friends from other cultures, and I knew them and their families, and that they were all good people. And I couldn't get around the fact that a God who is loving, who I used to call God, now is Bhagwan to me, but those two terms, they're very different. I just couldn't believe that people would be sent to hell for simply that. And when I became an adult, I started to look into other belief systems that fell more in line with the things I found myself naturally believing as a child. And that's also why I believe Sanatana Dharma to be the true path in the eternal path, because these are beliefs I naturally had within me when I was a young child, and then I just didn't have a term for it, if there's a way to say that. I didn't know what to call it. And also, when I was in my early 20s, I was going through a very hard time in my life, and my grandparents, who travel a lot, had gone overseas, and they were in Vietnam. And my grandmother, even being Christian, she offered a prayer to Shiva in a temple for me. And from that month, I got a huge transformation in my life. And I didn't know till years later, but looking back, I was able to see that. And I hadn't experienced that type of realness anywhere else. And that's just, the more I get into it, I'm still fairly new, and it's hard in a small town in Texas. That's in the U.S. we call this the Bible Belt. It's very, very Christian through here, but that I still got to be, the thing is, more I experience, the more I find truth in this. So.
Correct. So, Megan Ji, if you had to share a few firm reasons of, what made you leave Christianity, some of the beliefs that, you really could not wrap your head around them. So, other than, these few solid, reasons or probably teachings that you could just not connect with or agree with, which kind of turned you away from the religion that you were born into.
Well, the first thing is just that the biggest thing is the belief in hell. I just never could understand that. They say in Christianity that God is loving, but why would he send his children to hell just for making a mistake? And so it kind of fell more in line. I started to understand reincarnation and how, we might go to not as good of a life, but we get chances until we're perfect, or until we can be one with Brahman. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. A lot of the things I see in the world from people claiming to be Christians, all the hatreds towards other cultures from people who call themselves Christians, the genocides and things we hear about. And I didn't like that. And the unwillingness of the church to turn away from that. I never really was able to just connect with kind of sitting in the church and connecting with God. Now I have meditation. puja temples, when I'm able to go to them. And I feel a much more connection. And just the peace from experiencing it and living and believing it now. But, I've never been a hateful, intolerant person. And I don't like, seeing that in the world from people who claim to be Christian. It's hypocritical.
Correct. Maybe if you could also help us understand just the role or position of women in Christianity. That is one another topic actually that we are going to touch upon in this panel in the 3-day conference. But you having seen both the sides of the coin, if you could just help us understand a little bit on the concept of women or gender roles in Christianity, whether there is equality, because as we know that there were several feminist movements in the Western world for women to get their rights. So how exactly, and a lot of them was kind of taken away from them, claiming that they don't deserve that kind of equality. So could you help us understand that idea, that concept as well?
Yes, there's it kind of will differ between sects of Christianity. Sometimes you will see a little bit more openness, but we're pretty much taught that we're supposed to, respect our husband, which that's okay, but you'll see men who are abusive using that as a basis to, put their wife beneath them. In many churches, they don't allow women to have, part in any type of ministry. And, just expected to kind of cook or support things in there. But they've tried to get better with time, I think, to sound better to society, but women are held, as below, and we're seen as, we're supposed to follow the authority of a man. Which, it's okay to respect your spouse, respect other gender, but we're not beneath them. And that's where, I think it goes wrong. And I think that people sometimes just don't, they use it to justify bad behavior, for lack of a better word.
Correct. So, Vinci, like you spoke about different denominations as well in Christianity. Well, we're all well aware of the fact that, it is just one religion that is always blamed for the class divide and the caste divide. But as far as we know, whatever little that we know, there is this understanding that there are different sects, there are different segments, different denominations, even in other religions, right? So, could you help us understand this? In terms of Christianity, as in the kind of differences, the different, sects that are there in Christianity and their behavior towards each other. So, are they cordial? Because I read somewhere that, one is not supposed to visit the churches by the other, and there is some sort of difference and discrimination. So, if you could help us understand that as well.
Um, well, with that, there's hundreds of denominations, but the biggest division I think is seen between Catholics, Protestants, and within the Protestant denominations, they have a lot of people that are kind of more, I would say, the word rigid in their beliefs, and then there's people that are more relaxed. But I think the reason a lot for the relaxing is a desire to look attractive and to attract people, because when you go into it, it's still the same cores of belief. In the United States, you just hear so many. This is usually more rigid Protestant evangelicals. They believe that this is a Christian country and that it has to be, we need to go by the Bible, but not everybody in America is a Christian. We have a lot of different cultures, and so there's just not the same respect for other cultures. It's sort of a my way or no way. Kind of like they believe you go to heaven or you believe you're in hell. And it's sad. I just don't see a lot of respect for other people.
So in Christianity also, if somebody belongs to a different denomination, the respect for each one of them kind of varies.
Yes, it depends. I mean, you'll hear a lot of, I remember as a child, I went to church with a friend, and my family was Catholic, but I went to a Baptist church. And, immediately upon going in, I was told, that's wrong. But I also went to a mandir with a Hindu friend, when I was a child. And, I didn't sense that in there at all. That was kind of thing, I remembered how I felt there when I started to delve into it for myself, as a child. My parents on their own, they were, even though they had the Catholic beliefs, I think, they were more open and they let me go experience different things. So, the elders in my family are a little different with that. But, my mom and dad kind of let me explore.
That's
But they,
interesting,
they
and
would have
that's
been
really.
considered bad Catholics for that.
So did they
Yeah.
face any kind of trouble because of your decision?
Well, unfortunately, my mother, she passed away about 10 years ago. I don't believe she would have thought anything, but her mother, who's very Catholic, she does kind of, give me some talk about it and, asks questions. Um, she'll call me and say, well, why are you wearing a bindi? And she doesn't understand she, to her, Hindu and Islam are the same. She just sees one area of the world, and they're not the same at all. But I kind of get talked to. Overall, they still love me, but I think they fear, okay, well, since I don't believe, in the church anymore, I'm going to hell. And so I think that troubles them. Um, but I just kind of, the way I see it, if it makes me happy and it brings me peace and is helping me become a better person, then there's nobody that can judge that or try to take that, away from me, because this is a path I've found for myself that, it means so much in my life now. And so I just kind of let the comments go, and that's just the way it is.
Correct. So maybe Jay, like, as an Indian sitting in India, we have a very different perception of the West, especially of the US, right? Because the kind of secular and liberal society that they kind of put up in front of the world, it does get a little difficult to believe that there are still people who are extremely rigid and adamant about their thoughts, like you just shared, some anecdotes. So is that a regular occurrence? Just for my understanding, is that a regular occurrence? Do people really still hold it very close, like you had also previously said that sometimes they give Bible or the teachings of Christianity as a reason for bad behavior? So how prevalent that is still, because otherwise, for us, it's like, it's almost liberal societies. So, if you could help us understand that.
I would say right now, the way things are, there's a big divide. Because you have people who want it to be more open and not based on church things. And then you have like almost, I would call it extremism. Um, Especially with like our last election, that became very apparent. So you have people who are very open minded, and then you have maybe the other half of the people that are very, liberal in their thinking. So I just think the biggest thing is that it's divided, and you do have some tolerant people, but we have a big problem with intolerance. If somebody doesn't agree with me or believe as I do, they're wrong, and I'm going to attack them over it. I just would overall say, though, there's a mix of both. Um, and I don't like to be, you know, I want to be tolerant with other people, even other Christians. When they don't act the way I think, I still try to be respectful while disagreeing. And treat other humans good.
So, what was the reaction of your friends when you took the decision of, coming to the Sanatan fold? So, were they okay with it? Were they curious? Were they excited? Or was there any kind of resistance that you faced, either from your friends or the society otherwise?
Right now, I don't have a lot of friends who are, have other religions. Most of my friends were Christian, and I think they've kind of taken on as a support me from the distance. They don't understand why I would renounce something that to them is so important. Um, but then I have a few other friends that they don't identify with Hinduism, but they're more open, and they practice some other religions, and so they're very supportive of my choice and of things that mean to me. My fiance is very supportive of it. He's unsure for himself, but he's open to reading and looking, and that's something we're encouraged to do, is look into things and think for ourselves. And so I like that I have that support from him. And my sister, she's also very open to it with me, and is supportive of me. But I think a lot of my friends kind of backed away and kind of more want to support from a distance. They just don't really want to say anything, I think, because they do care about me, but they don't want to offend, or um, I haven't had a lot of from friends trying to like convert me back, or anything like that.
Right. So, Megan ji, if you could just share a little bit about your journey in the past 1 year or since the time you came to the Sanatan fold. So, how has your journey been? The differences that you've seen, the differences that you have felt, if you could please share them with us.
The difference is mostly, I still have a lot of struggle. Life can have struggle, um, but I have peace with it now, because instead of having, looking at God in the sky, um, I have, I have within me, I have divinity, and so I'm able to find peace through the struggles that I weren't. Before it was just kind of, I pray, wait, maybe God does something, maybe He doesn't. I didn't have much faith behind it, if that makes sense. Now I have belief that I have that within me, and so I can have peace. I think something that's hard for me is where I live, being in a rural, very Christian area. It's hard to understand some of the cultural things. So I'm trying, I try to learn, and because I want to do, I still have this, I think, from the Christianity in me, this urge to do things right all the time. Um, so I try to learn as much as I can and read as much as I can. It's harder to practice, definitely, living where I do. Um, I am able to sometimes go visit a mandir, but it's about an hour and a half away. And so, but in there, I feel very welcomed, and it's a good feeling. And most of my Upsana will be at home. So, just because I live so far from anybody else.
Right. So, maybe you also shared that you do puja. So, just a fun bit for us. So who's your favorite god from Sanatan? So, like, I'm a huge devotee of Narayan, of Krishna. So, do you have, and all of us, tend to have our favorites. So, do you have your favorite too?
I do. I feel a big connection with Shiva and Kali. So I with both, and I really appreciate Krishna as well. One of the first books I read was the Bhagavad Gita, and that really just spoke to my soul. So those are the three probably main that I feel connected. I love the fact that we see the multifacets and the ability, the divine feminine and masculine, and then everybody, there's all different sides of this, and there's a room here for everybody, a path for everybody, um, who wants to find it.
Like I said, Megan G, even previously before we started the talk, this is a little emotional for me because, like I said, I have had, sessions with ex-Christians who were born Hindus who went to the Christian fold and returned. But this is the first time that I'm having a talk with somebody who's a born Christian and who was welcomed in Sanatan. So it's quite a wonderful feeling, honestly, because, like, the way Hindus or Sanatan otherwise are battered in the entire world. It's good to hear that, after all, it's not the way it is projected. So thank you so much, Megan G, for sharing your experience. But I have two more questions for you. One last question, and then, I'm just going to take some comments from you. My last question to you, Megan G, would be, so, how dominant is still the role of church in state or politics in the US or in the Western world? Because there's quite a bit of history when it comes to the role of church in politics and the entire power struggle, and not a lot of good things have happened after that. We've read about the inquisitions and genocides, etc., but of course, those were the medieval times. Still some of those bit exist, but they now currently function in different ways. But otherwise, if you could just help us understand that how important role does church still play in politics or the power struggle or the state? Does that concept still exist?
Yes, and it depends on where somebody is located. A lot of it, um, and even though politics are kind of outside of it, we see um, it's kind of within it, and it influences. Our conservatives, they would like, and they do implement policies that are more heavily based on that. And then people of more liberal mindset, there's kind of, some of them may, okay, they may say they're Christian, go to church, but it's like they don't follow with the political part, they don't enforce that. It really depends where you're living. Where I'm at, I'm in Texas, it's very, very heavily Christian. The bigger cities, you have some mix, but for the most part, it's very Christian, and you see that influencing it a lot. For example, a lot of the country, women can have an abortion. In Texas, they very, very much limited this recently. And so, but at the same time, the more liberal party, a lot of them are Christian too, but I guess they don't impose it. Um, it's kind of hard to understand. Because it just, you see things and it doesn't really make sense, as far as, I think a lot of people too, they claim Christianity, but maybe they don't truly believe it, or they leave out kind of what's inconvenient, if that makes sense, and so they kind of make it their own way. I see a lot of that too, but then you have the other side that's so rigid, and they think that because they have these beliefs, everybody else should too, regardless of if they're part of that. And so, again, it comes down to like respecting human beings, for their differences. That doesn't mean though that anybody should stand for something that is wrong. That it's our duty to stand up at that point. At least that's how I feel. But
Right. So that was a wonderful discussion that we had with you. But before we let you go, we would just like to have some comments on, from you for both the Christian side, the Christian world, and for the Sanatan world as well. So if you have any comments or, anything to share, anything that you would like to tell them, so what would that be?
um My biggest thing is to um, not blindly believe anything. You know, we should be able to seek this for ourselves or whatever it is, not because it's mandated on us or because somebody makes something look good. You know, we're given the ability to explore and, you know, find our own beliefs. And, you know, that's why I love Sanatana Dharma, is that, you know, there's I'm able to find my own path within it. I don't have to believe what somebody else tells me to believe, just because it sounds good. I can go experience it and question and find out for myself. Um, so, you know, I think that's just important for anybody in their spirituality, regardless, is that they feel they have the freedom to explore and ask questions and have doubts. You know, that was something when I'm always learning. But at first, you know, especially people, they would tell me some things, and then they'd say, you know, what are your doubts? What are your questions? And so I was given ability to think for myself. And, you know, I want everybody to be able to have that. And there shouldn't be any like forced conversion or heavy pressure from anybody for anybody to, you know, convert to anything. That's a choice we have to make on our own because it's our own path. Um, so I'm just glad that I have found something that works for me. And even though I'm at the very beginning of the stages with it, um, I can't wait to see what, you know, what unfolds as time goes on, because it'll get richer and I'll have more of that experience for myself.
Absolutely, Megan G. We are also very glad. Uh, just, just, just again, before we let you go, one small question that just popped up in my head. So, just wanted to know, just out of curiosity, do you even celebrate some of the Sanatan festivals? Do you have your favorite one? We just got done with Ganesh Chaturthi over here, and now we have Navratri followed by Diwali. So, just out of curiosity, do you also have your favorite festival?
I haven't really gotten to experience a lot of it yet with other people, just due to where I live. Um, any of the celebrations, but when they come up, what I've been doing is I've been trying to learn about them. I look forward to being able to. Um, a lot of it is just I don't have the people close to me to kind of like help me with knowing the ins and outs because it's very, you know, it's very different. But I'm trying to like educate myself on what each one is, so, you know, it will become better, you know. And there's not, I guess, you know, in the outside of, if you're able to go, you know, to a Mandir here, it's hard to get um, connected with other people, and just living so far away. I'm probably the only person in my, you know, in my town that is Hindu. So it's just harder to connect with people. But I do enjoy learning about, you know, and hopefully, you know, once I'm more shown how, I'll be able to implement these traditions within myself and my, you know, my three girls. I also try to teach them what I can. So
That's absolutely wonderful, Megan G. And so we're going to make sure that next time we have a festival, we send across some photos and images or videos from our celebration. So, that will help you feel a little more closer home. And of course, needless to say that you always have us. If you have any doubts, if you have anything, if there's anything that we would be able to share from our end that, kind of gives you a sense of belonging, we're always going to be there for you, Megan G.
thank you.
Thank you so
I
much,
so
Megan
much.
G.
It's so appreciated, to, you know, have people willing to help.
Thank you so much, Megan G. Fitzy. Thank you so much for your time. That was a wonderful, wonderful discussion that we had with you. Hopefully, we'll keep conversing with you as you go ahead in your journey of Sanatan. We hope to have more and more conversations with you about it, about your experience. So thank you so much, Megan G, for joining us today. It was a delight speaking with you.
Thank you. It was a delight to speak with you as well.
Thank you so much, Megan G. Thank you so much, audience, for joining us today. Hope you really liked today's panel. Um, do follow us, do keep following us, because the next 2 days we're going to come up with a lot more panels to discuss the other aspects of Christian fundamentalism. So, right from politics, state, gender, evangelism to imperialism, there's a lot that we're going to discuss. So, hope to see you tomorrow once again at 6 p.m. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you again. Thank you.